This is Hard Parking, sponsored by Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Of course, you know I am your host, Jhae Pfenning, recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. Speaking of the home studio, I finally finished my desk. So what I've been doing, in case you haven't been listening, or maybe I just told the Patreons, but I had an old IKEA desk. It's a corner desk, but the problem is it had a monitor mount on it, a monitor, a couple arms, including this speaker arm, the arm for my Sony ZV-E110. But as I kept adjusting it over the last year or so, the structural integrity of the desk began to break down, and the weight of the monitor arm clamped onto, now what I mean by monitor is this tall, heavy thing you just attach a bunch of arms to so you can have 3 or 4 or 5 monitors on there. But the weight, combined with the movement, caused the desk to start breaking, started cracking, started digging into the desk. Now, if I would have put maybe a board on there for some more rigidity, that wouldn't have happened. But when that started happening, I knew that it was just a matter of time before the whole thing collapsed on me and everything broke. So we had these butcher blocks, giant butcher blocks in the garage from, I don't know, one of the projects that my wife had us, do in the past. I think they're going to go in the laundry room or whatever. One's a 4 foot, one was 6 foot. So the plan for the past year is for us to sand them down, stain them, seal them, and for me to turn them into office desks. My wife was supposed to actually do the sanding and stuff. She claims she likes doing that stuff. But I mean, again, well over probably a year. And then with the desk starting to break down, I knew that it was just a matter of time. So I did it myself. So I kind of reclaimed some of the pipe from my old homemade shirt press stand. It's the combination of 3/4 to 1 inch pipe steel, the threaded pipe. But then you can also buy, there's a brand called, I don't know, MVZT or something that makes it on Amazon. You can buy it and assemble your own stuff. Assemble your own furniture, your desk and things. And it's not even remotely the same as the official stuff you buy at the hardware store, but it doesn't cost as much and it's designed specifically for making furniture. So anyway, I finally got them in here. They're not adjustable. I kind of did this thing where I was raising them up to match the Husky desk that I have in here from Home Depot. The Husky desk, and if you guys have been into my studio at some point in the last year, you've sat at the Husky desk. It's the nice wood one that was in front of the piece of shit white one. But it has 2 drawers on it. And because the 2 drawers are there, you have to crank the desk up to clear your legs from going underneath them. But the problem is, these are obviously not designed to really sit at because it's like a workbench desk. The optimal height of a desk is somewhere between 29 and 32 inches off the ground. So you want your elbows to be about 90 degrees on the surface while you're typing, whatnot. But when I crank my main desk up and it clears my knees, well, not my knees, my thighs, now it's a good 4 or 5 inches higher than the optimal position. And so what I started doing is buying longer legs, pipe nipples. Keep your heads clean there. They're called nipples. So I started off with a 6-inch nipple, moved up to an 8-inch nipple, and then that wasn't high enough. So then I decided to buy a box of 10-inch nipples. But then I decided at some point, all these desks are going to be way too high. They're all ergonomically off. It's a little awkward. So I did this thing where I'm just going to crank my desk up, unless I have a guest in the studio, and then crank it down. So I settled at the 8 inches. But I ended up having a bunch of extra 10 inches that I just bought. Now, I could have returned them, but I decided that I would just make platforms with them to stick underneath the long desk so that I can get my storage, because I used to have boxes under there. But it didn't work because of the way these desks are built. The frame of them didn't allow for you to slide anything. I couldn't slide anything underneath the desk. But now I have these little shelves down there. They're kind of raw. I didn't sand them down, didn't stain them. I just bought the 2x2 1/4 inch or just over 1/4 inch 2x2 plywood squares, essentially. But the office already looks a ton better just because everything's kind of visually matching. Before we get to this word from Foil Online, I also want to tell you about your iPhones. If you have the iPhones, if you're an Android person, good for you. But, I was listening to one of my other podcasts and they were talking about subscriptions. And we all kind of share the same Apple plan. Myself, my wife, my daughter. I don't think my son is on our plan. My mother-in-law. We all have our separate Apple ID, but we still share some of the same iCloud stuff. And so I was thinking, because sometimes I go through and I look at my Apple subscriptions and I'm like, okay, somebody on this plan is paying for an iPhone 12 Pro Max, which none of us have that, $10 a month. Somebody else is paying for the Total Care because of the Apple Watch, which I don't have. So it's either my daughter, maybe my son, maybe my wife, but it's all coming out of our billing. So if you're an Apple family, like I'm a PC person, but when it comes to my phone, I'm an Apple guy. I don't care what you Android people say. But you need to go to your phone. You need to go to your settings. You need to go to your purchases and subscriptions and look at all the stuff that you and everybody else on your plan have purchased and forgot to cancel. I'm going down mine right now. There's a $10 Apple Care. There's another $10 Apple Care. We have Apple Music. I have Canva, which is $120 a year, renews in May. Captions that I use for the captions for the videos that I upload. That's a yearly purchase. I just canceled Duolingo. We had like 3 Duolingos. So yeah, I urge you to go in there and just clean out your subscriptions. After this word from 4Wheel Online, I'm going to tell you about the problems with my Infiniti. Last episode, I was complaining about the NSX. This episode, I'm going to complain a little bit about my Infiniti as part of the car news, because there is car news. And I'm going to recap some of the cars that I liked at Barrett Jackson because I did the whole Barrett Jackson thing. But it's not a car-centric episode. By the way, the Trump Diablo, everybody was the loudest when the Trump Diablo went across the auction block. Hear about that after this word from 4Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any make or model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them online at 4Wheel Online. I still need to buy some stuff from 4Wheel Online. I know that commercial has sold at least one set of wheels from you guys, so thank you for supporting that sponsor. But they do have all sorts of stuff, just like the commercial says. So you guys know that on the show, I talk a lot about, well, every once in a while I'll say perception versus reality, right? And so I may ask my guests, and I have some pretty interesting guests coming up. I just need to, book them. We do this thing all the time. Hey, come on the show. Oh, I'd love to come on the show. Let's make it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make it work. But then I don't do it, or they just disappear. But one thing I always ask people is, and if you're kind of new to the show, you're not used to this, but the perception versus reality, because we all have perception versus reality. People see me and think things, but the reality is it's something else. We may find somebody who's, killing it, but really every day is a struggle and they're not quite sure what else they're going to do. And they're just trying to make things stick. That's kind of how my world is. But friend of the show, good friend of mine, Josh Benjamin, about a month ago, he reached out and said, hey, this thing's coming up in January during Scottsdale Auction Week. I don't know how they got my name. I know he's the president of the AMG Club of Arizona, Mercedes AMG Club. But somehow someone got his name and invited him to this Stellantis party. So he said, Jay, would you like to go? If my girlfriend doesn't want to go, then you want to be my plus one. I was like, oh, sure, I'll think about it. Yeah, just when is it? What are the dates? So I put it on my calendar, an Alfa Romeo thingy with Josh. Or fast forward to last week. This was actually last Wednesday for One Drink Wednesday. I missed One Drink Wednesday because of this. So he wanted me to talk him into not going because I guess he had anxiety or just didn't feel like going because he didn't know what to expect. So on the invite, it said the gathering is in a residential area, so be mindful of noise and things. I'm like, is this at someone's house? Okay, I want to go a little less now, but I don't think, big picture. My brain doesn't think, okay, well, it's auction week in Scottsdale. This could be like a pretty happening thing. But we end up going. One of the best decisions I've made in a long time. We're walking around trying to figure out, okay, this is a Radford event, Stellantis, Radford, as far as Radford Racing School. Stellantis is kind of a big name with Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler, Maserati. So this was their party in collaboration with Radford Racing School and Whistle Pig Rye Whiskey, right? So we walk. So we arrive at this house. It's at the end of a street. So it's the last house where you have to turn around. And they've got Dodge, I don't know, HellCats or whatever. I didn't even pay attention to the Dodge. I don't know if they're demons, HellCats, whatnot. But they're the ones at Radford with the big Radford Racing School on it. Nice outdoor fireplace, giant front door. Walk into the house and we're like, wow. Alfa Romeos parked in this person's backyard by the pool on the back part of the lawn. House is wide open. We got food and everything on the right. There's a bar as soon as you walk in that actually has decent spirits. Pool table on your left. A bunch of people sitting in front of you at different cocktail tables. There's TV, another fireplace in the back, another bar. Ended up being, so we kind of did the thing where, we ran into Kayla Rundle, which she's another local, I would call her kind of a car celebrity Instagram girl. So she's a really nice person. But she was one of the guest judges at last year's Future Collector Car Show, the 2023. She wasn't a judge this year at 2024, but I think she was there. Anyway, we're walking around, we're getting our drinks, and then we see Matt, the moderator, DeAndrea. So you guys know Matt's been on the show, Matt, Mr. Bravago. So he has Bravago seltzers, alcoholic seltzers, cocktail drinks. He and Bill Goldberg are the two primaries that started that company. The owner of this house also bought into it, which we learned, and as did Craig Jackson from Barrett Jackson. So they all kind of own part of this Bravago. We find out the owner of the house is a gentleman named Pat Velasco. So Pat Velasco owns Radford and does a lot of other really cool things. Super nice guy, super cool event, so we're going around, we're getting our drinks, and like the who's who is there. There's so Ralph Gillis. I don't know if I say his name always correctly. Ralph Gillis. So Ralph is a guy that sometimes on social media, friends from, not my immediate friends here, but just people who kind of know me, they might tag me in a photo because they're like, "Hey Jay, is this you?" I'm like, "No, that's not me. That's this Ralph guy." Ralph is the chief designer at Stellantis. So he oversees Alfa Romeo design, all that kind of stuff. He was there. The artist, world-renowned car designer, hot rodder, Chip Foose was there, just sitting at the table. I guess Chip was hanging out with Matt, DeAndrea. But Chip whips out this marker set, 2 or 3 hours into the party, and he just draws this awesome car, just all Prisma markers. Now, I used to go to art school. Some of you know that, some of you don't. But I went to Kendall College of Art and Design in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I failed. I flunked out of industrial design. It just wasn't my passion. I thought I was going to design cars. I thought I was going to design cars and shoes like Jordans and stuff like that. But I didn't have the passion once I went to school. My passion, in my opinion, was communication and my ability to connect and network. Sure as hell wasn't drawing. I mean, I'm decent at it, but I basically game recognizes game. So I'm watching Chip draw this, and, everyone's recording it, and it's a super cool thing. And, I think I don't know who he gave it to. I think the guy who gave it to was supposed to get it. We'll put it that way. But Josh got the marker bleed through. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, it's basically when you're drawing on the paper, the marker bleeds through to the next page. And so he got the marker bleed through. Chip Foose happily took that bleed through and took a pencil or pen and kind of redrew like part of it and then autographed it for him. And that was pretty special. And I mean, he was right there. So when you go to these little house parties, there's probably 75 people in this house. Everybody kind of doing their own little thing, I think, after a couple hours into this, a lady from Stellantis, like their regional marketing director, and Ralph were on the microphone. And it's just this euphoric thing where it's like, wow, I'm here and I'm a +1. And had Josh not asked me if I wanted to go, neither one of us probably would have gone. And yet here we are meeting these people. And I struck up a conversation, I talked to Chip, and I think we connected because of the art. And I could tell that he knew that I knew what I was talking about when it came to the hard work that it takes to do what he does and the appreciation. And then talking to Ralph and I exchanged phone numbers. This was after we talked a couple times and they were getting ready to leave. And I go, hey, you guys getting ready to leave? And they're like, yeah. I go, are you going to be at the auction? That's what everyone asked during the auction. Like, you're going to be at the auction? You're going to be at Barrett Jackson? Cool, I'll see you there. And most people you never see there. Unless you're like a super VIP, which I am not, by the way. I'll tell you guys that. I've only had super VIP access at Barrett Jackson one time. And that is my very first time at Barrett Jackson when my good friend Peter and his very good friend, very well-known guy, Colin Comer, were there. But Colin was sick that day. So the plan was for Colin, myself, and Peter to go have breakfast at Butterfield's, which is one of my favorite places around here. When breakfast was over, release Peter to Colin, and I would go home, and then they would do their whole, auction tour thing. They'd hop out to the different auctions, and then they'd go to the airport. But that day, Colin was sick. So Peter had nothing to do but hang out with me all day, and then I took him to the airport. And so we had Colin's like Mac Daddy credentials, so there's nowhere we couldn't go at Barrett Jackson. But that's the only time that I've had super access. But that's perception versus reality. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. So, let's go back to the Stellantis party. Sorry to kind of go sideways on you guys there. So I'm at the Stellantis party and, I'm meeting Ralph. And before he leaves, I go, hey, would it be cool if we just had another conversation at some point? Because the cool thing about him is he has an Alfa Romeo GT V6, which is one of the cars I want. But he put an S2000 motor in it. He was showing me on his phone. Gives us something to talk about, right? Me being a Honda Acura guy, loosely. I don't pretend to be a pro by any means, and those of you who know me well know that. But that was a cool connection. I love Alphas. I love Hondas and Acuras, and he does too, because he loves the fact that I have a 22 Type S, and he's got a S2000 motor. I think it was S2000 motor in his GT-V6, which sounds like it'd be the most awesome thing ever. But we exchanged phone numbers. And then as I was pulling into my garage later that night, I got a text from him saying, hey man, great to meet you today. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Okay, so let's reverse and go back to the party. I met another guy named Tyson. Tyson is in movies and directing. I didn't ask, because I don't do this thing where it's like, okay, so Matt introduced us and they were talking about, Tyson he lives in Wyoming, this giant cowboy hat, super fucking nice guy. It's a small world we live in. Tyson knows Noah Nelson. Now, you guys know I've had Noah on the show. Wes, because we've become friends with Noah just from our connections. He's a great guy. That's the Burma episode, guys. The guy who was at Burma, getting shot at, writer, director, producer, son of Craig T. Nelson, blah, blah, blah. So we started talking about, we were talking about Tyson's production studio, because he's like, yeah, I used to be on TV and I always seem to play a bad guy and blah, 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 blah. I'm sitting there listening to him like, I wonder what he's in. I wonder what he's in. I wonder what he's in. But I never ask people, hey, oh, really? What did you in? What were you in? But when he mentioned that now he produces and they have kind of a faith-based, loosely religion, faith-based production company, that's when the light went on in my head. I go, wait a minute. Do you know Noah Nelson? Because the company that, if you guys listen to that episode, some of you did, some of you probably didn't, but the company that sponsored his trip to Burma for the Free Burma Rangers is a faith-based production company. It ended up not being the company that Tyson's associated with, but Tyson knew Noah, and then we just kicked it off from there. So hopefully, maybe one day I can have Tyson on here, because we talked for 30 minutes, and it was one of the most awesome conversations I've ever had. But when I get home, after all this awesome, exceptional night, I emailed the lady from Stellantis and thanked her for inviting Josh, and by that way having me as his plus one, because you never know where relationships are going to take you. Kara's her name. Kara, thank you so much. We were at the Stellantis thing. It was awesome. But I checked my social media, and there's been a few people, you get the TFTIs, and you have your good friends that do it, and then you have other people you don't really know very well. And that means thanks for the invite. And you all understand that. But one of the guys sent me a old crying tear, and I'm like, what's up? He goes, oh, I wish I could be on those type of lists. A couple people said that. Oh, it must be nice. Well, how do I get on these lists? And I know what they're really thinking. They're thinking, where's my invite? How do I get on this list? What's your hookup? And my response is, hey, man, I'm not on the list either. I was just a friend of a friend that was on the list. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. But look, I'm telling you guys this. I don't say this to be petty, but we all know these people in our lives. If they were on the list, would I have gotten an invite? And the answer to that is no. So only the real ones are going to reach out. And they can still be your boys. You could be cool in public, say what's up, have a beer. But for everybody who hits me up with that stuff, I already know I'm not the one that would be their plus one. And so I try to reciprocate that stuff because I have a lot of relationships to keep up with people. It's like when I went to Barrett, I took Devin. Devin's been on the show. Devin has done some car reviews on here, and he's been here in studio, and he's got the funeral home thingy, right? But I was like, okay, who can I take to Barrett that's not going to drive me crazy and has the availability? And it's funny because I put up a poll, and some of you know who's going to Barrett today. And I looked at everyone who said, not me, not me, not me, or me, not me. I go, okay, how many of these people who aren't going to Barrett today? And that's why it's important to answer my polls too, by the way, guys, because you never know what I'm asking for. I go, so let me go down this list of people who said no and reach out to them. It's like, all right, well, first I go through my crew, right? Will, you work today? Yep. Or no, I'm off. Hey, you want to go to Barrett? Oh, I can't. Okay, cool. Mike, you work today? Yeah, I have to work. Okay, cool. Never mind. Okay, well, that's when I did the poll. Devin, want to go to Barrett? Sure. I'll go. I guess I'll go up there and pay for a ticket and go. Like, no. If I'm asking you if you want to go to Barrett with me, chances are I already have a ticket for you. Sure as shit I did, because thank you, Daryl Hills, for always hooking me up when you come into town. Bitter guest pass to get you in, which we all want admission, but I want to drink, right? So I had a media pass, and the media pass doesn't let me drink. It just like gets me in there. I want a drink. So take Devin up there, have a great time. But I guess I didn't really wrap that up very well, but that's perception versus reality. Perception is I'm on all these lists. I have access to all this stuff. Oh, look at me. I'm living the life. The reality is I was a guest of a guest. Almost any time you see me out there, it's because somebody else was nice enough to either invite me or extended their hand to hook me up. It's not me. And because I get in trouble with that around the house too. My wife, how come you didn't invite the kids? How come you don't take Marcelo? You don't take Jaylene? I'm like, well, they're not my tickets to give away most of the time. They really aren't. And then when I'm going, I'm there saying hi to everyone. So I'm going to be the worst person you want to hang out with most of the time. Sometimes I'm all right, but most of the time, looks like I'm living the life. Sometimes I am. Most of the time I'm not. I went to Barrett Jackson on Saturday by myself. I didn't reach out and try to find anyone to go with me. It's really who's going to be there. Okay, well then I'm going to run into you when you're there, hopefully. But the JV, he's been on here before. Does the fuel run and Gold Rush Rally and exotics on Broadway. He's there with Amy Shackelford, but I call it the tower. They're up in the Barrett Jackson skybox. I'm never going to get up. Well, I'm going to say I'm never going to get up there, but I don't get up there. I hit up Ralph from Stellantis. Hey, you going to Barrett? He goes, yeah, I'll be there on Saturday. But of course, he's up there. I'm not going to get up there, nor am I going to ask, hey, man, hook it up. The hope is just to say hi. Say hi, be cordial, be authentic and genuine, and you never know where your relationships are going to get you. And that's the reality. So now that we're done with the perception versus reality, we'll talk about, Barrett a little bit. So, Devin and I ran into Peter Cunningham. I always say his full name. I don't know why. I just do. That's just one of those deals. And it's funny because I learned to do that after I met Peter years ago, because when he introduces you to someone, it's always their full name. It's like, hey, I was hanging out with Jake Johnson. It's like, oh, you can't say Jake Johnson. So Jake Johnson must be somebody. This is my friend Colin Comer. This is my friend Jake Johnson. It's like, oh, okay. I'm Jay Pfenning. Hey, Jay, what do you do? Healthcare IT? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm at Barrett with Devin, and we're kind of walking around just chilling because Devin's really chill. And get some food, run into Peter, walk around with him for 15, 20 minutes before he leaves with Colin. But this year, like I said earlier, I had a media badge, and what comes with media badge, you have to sign all these waivers and all this stuff and kind of capture some information. So I was taking footage with my iPhone. I didn't bring a camera, a fancy microphone, didn't bring any fancy lenses, just my iPhone in a vlog style, which I hate vlogs. Some of you know that. By the way, I met Shmee this weekend. I never watched one episode of Shmee. I know who Shmee is. Some of you listening know exactly who Shmee is and are probably thinking, son of a bitch. I wish I could go there and meet Shmee. Some of you don't care. Some of you don't know who Shmee is and whatever, but he was hanging out with another one of my friends, and I go, oh, hey, Shmee, what's up, man? Shook his hand, whatever. But I was filming footage, and I missed it would have gone viral, man. And Devin pointed it out, and by the time I got my phone out and hit record, it had stopped. What it was this lady had come in, this lady and her husband had come in, a little older, and they had their service dog, this little, I don't know, Yorkie poo looking thing. Like a Maltese, somewhere between a Maltese and a Yorkie or something. This is white, full service dog is what it said on the dog's vest. But the dog started humping its owner's back, the back of her leg. And it was the funniest thing. I wish I would have got it on video. But for the rest of the next 2 hours, every time we saw them, we're like, hey, there they are. And I'd take my phone out and I'd just start recording. And it never happened again. And we probably ran into them 4 or 5 times. Some of the cars I saw at Barrett. Well, first off, like I said earlier, the craziest thing. So looking at the Gas Monkey Hummer, the H1 Gas Monkey Hummer that broke the internet. 3 days after this thing was shown on Instagram, it had 127 million views. 127 million views. I thought this thing was going to go for 1.5 million. It ended up going for, I think, 750,000 or something. Pretty rad. You can't really do anything with it, but look at it. You can't go out on the night with it. Sure, you can cruise a strip, but you can drive up and down the strip and everyone's taking pictures and looking at it, but they're also going into the bar to dance and eat good food and have a great time, and you're still driving up and down the strip because you can't park it anywhere. Where are you going to put it? You pull up somewhere and park it in front of the club? In some cities, yeah. But then, what's going to happen to it while you're inside? And then when you leave, drinking and driving, you know what I mean? So you can't really do anything with cars like that. But there were a lot of really cool cars at Barrett. And I think this year I saw 70% of the cars. I usually average about 65, 70% of the cars. And the reason why is because I just walking around talking to people. That's it. Like, the cars are there. There's some really cool cars in the main tent, I call it. I don't know what it's called. The gallery, maybe. The main tent that extends from right next to the auction stage all the way to the very back of the auction. And then outside with all the food vendors and stuff, you have the big covered, circus tents. And those are filled with the cars that have gone through the auction or will go through the auction. I think there's 6 of those. And each of those has, 150, 200 cars in it. I think this year there was over 2,000 cars at Barrett Jackson. So no time to go through all those cars. And it doesn't matter the cars that were up for auction that I like. There's some really cool ones. The auction is a great time. And I told Jen, you guys know Jen and Alex, I told them, look, they came out here for the Waste Management Open, the golf tournament. That's cool, but that's nothing compared to Barrett Jackson Week, in my opinion. You get a pass, you get a hookup. Again, thank you, Daryl. And you go every day. You go every day, and you can't see everything in one day. And then you want to hang out and chill and socialize too. So that takes away from it. Like, no one is so driven. You go there and you're like, okay, I'm going to look at this car, this car, this car, this car, this car. I don't want anything to drink. Don't want anything to eat. I'm just going to go up and down and row and look at all these cars. No one does that. You can't do that. You got to have a good time. I think that's all. That's all I'm going to say about Barrett Jackson, the event. Let's get to the car news. So I had mentioned at the opening about my Infiniti. So I go to get my car because I need to go pick up the tires and the wheels from my NSX, because the last episode I just got new wheels and tires and suspension and that whole hoopla, right? Spent a lot of money. This time I get in the car. Oh man. The Infiniti's dead. I'm like, all right, let me jump it. The battery. So I have a little jump pack that I got at 2017 Wisconsin NS Expo. The thing has been money for me. Also doubles as a charger. I mean, everybody has these now, but back then there weren't that many of them. So it's in the garage. I take it out, hook it up, negative, positive, hit the little button, ready to go, get in the car. Nothing. Now, the battery pack said 100%. The little charge to the jump pack. So then I go and look at the jump pack, and now it's at 54%. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it said 100%. Maybe I used half of it trying to jump the car. But the Infiniti wasn't, like, it was making this weird noise because the electronics were on, but it wasn't enough to turn the car over. I go, okay, all right, fine, that's cool. So then I think about it. Okay, well, I have this other one, the one that I won from Fuel Fest, that it was still in the box on the floor in my office, still wrapped up in the shrink wrap or whatever these things come in. Because when I won it at the time, I was wondering, like, what am I going to do with this? I already have a jump pack. I think Marcelo has one. Jaylene probably has one. Probably doesn't need it. I don't want to just give it away. The thing's worth like $120. So it just sat on my floor in my office right by my foot for 2 months, right? Because Fuel Fest was in December. So almost 2 months. So I take it out, and of course, it has nothing because it's been in the box. So then I plug it in and charge it. Just let it run. So then the Infiniti's down for like 2 days. So when it's fully charged, I take it out there and try to start the car. Nothing. Like, oh, this thing is dead. Like, obviously the goal of a jump starter is to jump what little juice you already have in there. But the car was dead. Like, all right, obviously this doesn't work. So I took it off. This is the NOCO charger. Plugged that back in the kitchen so it could get it fully charged. And I remembered, oh yeah, I bought a trickle charger for the NSX and like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago, it would have been January of 22 and the NSX wasn't here yet. So about a year and a half ago, never took it out of the box because some NSX guys say you need it. Some NSX guys say you don't. I had one for the old car and I sold that with the car. So I started looking at it. I go, is this rated for certain batteries or whatnot? Because the reason why, and it dawned on me, the reason why the first jump pack didn't work is because that one was for V6. My Infiniti is a V8, 5.0 liter V8. I go, okay, And that's why I was excited that the NOCO says 6.0 liter or 3 liter diesel. But that didn't work because the battery was dead as shit. So then I took the trickle charger and I stuck it on the car, selected for vehicle mode, ran the extension cord all the way from the garage, tucked it underneath the hood because it rained like crazy for the next 2 days. So 2 days later, so now we're up on, Thursday, this last Thursday now or Friday, coming into a week after I said I was going to go pick up the wheels. Which, by the way, I picked them up. I picked them up in their MDX. And I didn't want to leave them at variant. So I picked them up in the MDX, but my Infiniti was still down and out. So 2 days later, because it's been raining, I had no reason to go anywhere. I go out there. I'm like, all right, well, the thing should have energy now. Go to start it. It's super dead. Super dead. Obviously, the trickle charger didn't fucking work. So I take the trickle charger out. Now I've tried the first jump pack, which we know didn't work because V8 versus V6 doesn't work. The second one, no idea why that didn't work. Well, yeah, I know why. The battery was super dead. And it has to have some life in order for a jump start to work. And then, of course, the trickle charger made it worse. I'm 100% sure the trickle charger just made it worse. So then I did what any normal, logical person would do. I just took the battery out. And it couldn't be any easier to take my battery out. And I asked myself, why didn't I just do this at the beginning? So I took it to AutoZone in the MDX. It was under warranty. Got a free battery. Put it in. That's my Infiniti story. Now, my windows don't automatically roll down anymore when I tap the button because I have to program that. But could have saved myself a lot of grief if I just took the fucking battery to AutoZone and got a free one because it's under warranty. That's my shitty car story. But if you really want to know, Porsche rolls out its first all-electric SUV, an all-electric version of the Porsche Macan. Macan SUV. That's it. I don't have any details on this article. I apologize. But I'm not going to dig for another stupid car news article. But what I can tell you is at Barrett Jackson, there was a Lexus 2024 GX, and that thing was sweet. It doesn't have that giant, ugly monster grille. And by the way, everything that's coming out looks like a Land Rover. The Toyota Land Cruiser. There's a Land Cruiser prototype there. That thing looks like a freaking Land Cruiser. I mean, it is a Land Cruiser. That freaking thing looks like a Land Rover or a Range Rover. It's pretty sweet. Other cars there that I liked. I didn't even go through the manufacturers. I didn't do any ride-alongs, none of that stuff. But the Lexus GX stood out, and that Toyota Land Cruiser stood out as two vehicles that immediately caught my eye. That makes me, and when you have an Infiniti whose battery dies and it's 2009 and it's old, if it weren't for the fact that I'm not paying that much for it and it could be paid off at any time, I would seriously be looking at one of these new SUVs. And you never want to buy a brand new anything, right? But these redesigned body styles, they make it really hard. Even that Acura ZDX looks interesting. I wouldn't get it. It's cost too much. I don't think it's overpriced, but it's more than I would want to spend for something like that. Is that fair? Is that fair to say? You could say something, you don't think it's overpriced, but it's just more than you would want to spend for it. I don't know what the price of the ZDX should be. I know the Prologue that's out, and Honda's little version of that. I don't know how much that costs. I'm guessing it's $45,000, $50,000. But our MDX, had we purchased it, because it's a lease, had we purchased it, it was like a $64,000, $65,000 vehicle. That's why we didn't purchase it. That's why we lease it. But I think the ZDX costs around that, if not a little bit more. But it's a good looking vehicle, but that's just an example of a vehicle that looks nice. I just wouldn't buy it, and it costs a little bit more than I would want. You know, it's fun. I'm going to talk about Barrett Jackson again because something happened this weekend. There's a guy named Jason Day who comes out every year. He's a really good friend of Daryl's. Daryl's the guy who hooks me up with passes, him and his son, Weston. So I met Daryl and Weston through Jane at Right Honda and Cody Walker. They bought Cody Walker's yellow Civic Type R 4 or 5 years ago when it went for auction at Barrett Jackson. And that was their first year, them as in Right Toyota, Right Honda's first year as being part of sponsoring my podcast. And so I was invited to kind of do that thing, shot the video with Jane. And that year, when I was at Barrett Jackson, I was there as a guest badge, whatever, of Right Honda, Right Toyota. Every year after that, it's just Daryl hooking me up because we kind of hit it off really well. But Jason Day comes in the last 3 years because he's one of Daryl's good friends. Jason Day is a vice president of CarMax. And he was, according to legend, Jason Day was the first employee at CarMax. So I don't know if it's something his father started. I haven't really researched it. We've been kind of teasing to have him on the podcast now for 3 years. And Jason's like, I don't know, man. What would I talk about? But super, super cool guy. So the other night I go up to the Westin at Carolyn Commons to pick up the passes that Daryl had for me. And, Jason and them had showed up because they're going to go eat dinner. Jason's like, Jay, you should go eat with us. You want to go eat with us? And I was like, I just picked up the pool vacuum from Marcelo, who's hooking us up because ours took a shit after I spent 8 hours replacing the motor and trying to fix it in the garage. And I'd been gone for a few hours. I didn't really plan on it, and I really wasn't dressed appropriately. I was kind of scrubbed out, but it doesn't matter during auction week. And that's another thing. People come into Scottsdale from all over the place, all over the world. they don't come dressed to the nines. They come just relaxed. So jeans, freaking some guy. You can go to a nice steakhouse and see people in there wearing shorts and a Van Halen t-shirt. And only during auction week, by the way. Any other time, they'd look at you crazy or turn you away at the door. But they were going to Mastro's Ocean Club, which was right around the corner from where this hotel was. And I was like, man, it's already 9 o'clock. I'm a solid 45 minutes easily from my house. Got a lot of work to do. Got to get up to the next morning and work. So this was like a Thursday night. I decided not to. I was kicking myself all the way home. Sure as shit, they went there and they closed the bar down. And I already knew had I had said yes, Jason and his crew would have paid for the whole thing, because they did, because that's what they do. People come into town and they have all this money they want to, write off. And I mean, we all know that have gone on business trips. That's what you do. But I told myself, I go, you know what? I could have gone. I'm not glad. I mean, I'm not upset that I didn't, but that's one of those opportunities you have to seize and take advantage of. It's just like going with Josh to the Stellantis party at Pat Velasco's house in North Scottsdale, like a $6 million crib, beautiful people, nice people, great times, no snobbiness. But had I not gone there, I wouldn't have met some of the people that I met. And also, I mean, Matt was there, Bogey, guys, I've talked about Bogey. She's kind of a big deal. Her all girls garage had a custom built at the Barrett Jackson Cup, and they won People's Choice. So again, she's kind of a big deal. Over 160 women built this thing. And, she was at the party. So it's really cool, right? But I told myself, I'm like, someone invites me to go out and eat, I'm going to go. So Saturday, when I was at Barrett Jackson, I was hanging out with local intersex friend of mine. And I've never really asked him what he does. I don't like asking people what they do. And if somebody asks and it just becomes a conversation, cool. But most of the time, I'm usually surrounded by people who do a lot more than me, make a shit ton more money than me. They own shit where I work for people. And that's fine. I don't feel like I'm, not good enough. I'm there, right? I'm there with them. I go to these things, so I must be good enough somewhere. But he's like, hey, Jay, it was right around 6 o'clock on Saturday. So the auction, they call it Super Saturday. And so that's when Friday and Saturday is when all the big stuff goes across. And the Trump Diablo had just gone across, which, by the way, when they rolled that on the stage, I had not heard everyone. I don't think there's ever been a time I've been at Barrett Jackson. It's been a long time since I've been at Barrett Jackson where the whole place was just going crazy. Usually it's a charity auction or something where the number gets like over the millions, $2-3 million. But when they rolled that thing up on stage, people were standing up, cheering, clapping, recording, and I kind of did like this big 360 now. Regardless of your political beliefs, I don't care what your politics are. I don't really talk politics much on here either, but it was crazy to see. And, whether you say it's just a bunch of rich old white men, which it isn't, if you've ever been to Barrett Jackson, there's a little bit of everybody there. But that kind of tells you where the country's headed. If that guy were to run again, probably going to win in a landslide, just saying. But after that auction, after that Diablo went across, which by the way went for $1 million, I was sitting with my buddy Mike because those were his seats. Again, perception versus reality. I'm lucky to be there, but local NSX connection. He's there entertaining his clients. We were on the 4th row back, center stage. He said, Jay, you want to go eat? I go, well, where are you guys going? I go, well, first off, it doesn't matter where you're going. I'm just asking. We go to some place called something Bistro. That's what he said. I go, okay, cool. Don't think nothing of it. Cool. Hell yeah, I'm going to go. I wasn't sure if I was ready to leave the auction yet, but someone just asked me if I wanted to go eat with them. And I just told myself I wasn't going to say no, as long as it was, cool people. And so we went, and we had a great time. We went to this local bistro place by his house. And let me tell you, I'm not going to drop any names here, but those people at that restaurant know him very well. And so we get to the restaurant, and the first guy goes in before, Michael and his wife and his other buddy are parking. Comes back out and says, oh, well, this time is 6:45. They said it's going to be about 7:45 till they have a table for us. So like another hour. I'm like, oh, all right, whatever. Because I'm used to waiting, during auction week here, Monterey, Super Bowl, Waste Management, whenever there's something big going on, expect to wait. No matter where you're at, expect to wait 45 minutes to an hour. I was like, cool. Michael comes up. He goes, hey, what are you guys doing? You're not inside yet. He goes, his other buddy says, well, so they said it's about a 45-minute wait. Mike's like, no, it's not. Goes inside, comes back out 20 seconds later. It's like, all right, they'll have the table ready for us in like a minute. Sure as shit, we go right in there and sit down. But awesome dinner. I got to learn more about him and what he does, what his wife and some of the other people at the table do. And there's just 5 of us. And afterwards, we went over to Mike's house, beautiful house, and hung out in his garage for 2.5, 3 hours. And if you guys saw, I had uploaded a picture and I said, free hard parking swag to whoever can figure out what this is. And it's a t-shirt cannon. He has a t-shirt cannon. You go to his daughter's school and fire t-shirts up into the crowd. Who has a t-shirt cannon? Well, Michael does, but again, that was, probably the highlight of my weekend was just being able to kind of hang out and do stuff like that. And now I got in trouble because I didn't check in with the wife when I was out more than like once. But I don't know. People are weird like that sometimes. Sometimes, I sent her a video from Michael's closet, and I was like, okay, this is just his closet. It's pretty cool. But she didn't respond to nothing, so I figured she was asleep, right? Plus, I'd had a couple drinks, and you guys know that I can't, I was out in the Type S, and I was way up north, good 45 minutes away. 45 no traffic minutes away. So those of you who are familiar with Phoenix understand what that means. It means it's a long fucking ways away. So I had, I think I had an old fashioned. No, I had a Manhattan, which I love, but I can't have more than one Manhattan because the sugars and the alcohol just doesn't mix well with me. Then I had an Eagle Rare on the giant cube. Seemed like it was a very heavy pour. And then we went to Michael's house and I had a Jose Cuervo Reserva Extra Añejo. So it's from Mexico. You can't buy that here. And then we just chilled, like literally did nothing but just talk. I listened to them talk about guns and shit, for like 2.5 hours before it's time to go. But that was a great time, man. Great weekend. And I guess I was supposed to be talking about cars, but no one cares about cars. If you guys like this episode today, make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review. I don't always go ramble crazy like I did tonight, but sometimes I do. You guys know I lived in Michigan for a long time, so I was really pulling for the Lions. But I'm actually a San Francisco fan too, so that was kind of weird. It's weird to like one team and then kind of have to root against them because that, like Detroit, I would have liked to have seen Detroit go to their first Super Bowl, we'll put it that way. But now it's the 49ers versus the Chiefs, so there's 2 narratives there. You could chase perfection with Patrick Mahomes being a record. He's doing stuff that no one else has done, and he's chasing Tom Brady. And I don't dislike him or the Chiefs, but I would like to see the 49ers win. So Brock Purdy defy the odds, being the last person picked in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, 2 years ago. And that'd be a great story. To me, that's a greater story, but the Chiefs winning is more of a legacy thing. And so hopefully it's just a good Super Bowl. But I think if I had to pick one, I would go for, I would pick the Niners, but I wouldn't be upset if either team won. I don't know if I should do a Super Bowl celebrity episode. You guys let me know. We're 2 weeks out, which means we have, I guess it would have to be next week's episode, right? Yeah, it'd have to be next week's episode, or I would record the episode the week of Super Bowl, and then it would air Super Bowl Monday, the day after the Super Bowl. So let me know. I kind of like doing those. I get a lot of really big names on here, but no one really listens to those episodes anyway. So who knows? But I've done them 3 years in a row. Want to thank Right Honda and Right Toyota, 4wheelonline.com, Sales Shop Wireless Services, Auto Cannon Official, Honda and Acura gear. I was wearing my gear all week, by the way, and I ran into a few people that had some Auto Cannon gear on too, so that was always cool. Patreon business supporter, Kuya Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida. Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland. Pell Construction out of Caledonia, Michigan. Big House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia. And Traverse City, Michigan. Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley out of Boise, Idaho. Catch us on One Drink Wednesday. Almost every Wednesday, 7 o'clock Pacific time. Definitely this Wednesday. If you want to join the podcast, if you're in a position to help the podcast upgrade, you can join the Patreon for as little as free or $3 a month to $10 a month to get access to bonus audio as well as show swag. Some of the bonuses I release to everyone, some of them I only release to paying members. I want to thank Mark Stillman, Catherine Cox, Sadie Ramos, Richard Graves, Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Alice Kamina, Drew Bunkley, and Yasu Chiba. If you guys want to pick up a Hard Parking Podcast shirt, check the website, hardparkingpod.com. New shirts are coming. Email the show, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram @Pfenning. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. Join the Hard Parking channel. A lot of directives, right? Hard Parking channel on Instagram. And as a reminder, the RSS feed is now on YouTube. So you can go to the YouTube Hard Parking Media, click on playlist, and go directly to the podcast. Listen to every podcast I've ever uploaded. Most of them, not all of them. While you do your workday. But I don't know why you would do that instead of just listening. But some of you are weird and just want to consume stuff on YouTube. So I can't grow. They telling the world how great this show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. And I will talk to you all next week.
Now it's stripping time.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Shut up!